Philco 38116.
Hello everyone, this is Jerry Stone. Now, I wouldn't consider myself a huge Philco collector, but I do appreciate the company. They established many norms in the radio industry and made some just really well thought out sets. They were kind of the leading company in the radio industry for many decades, and they had designs and just a lineup that was very well thought out, but still good looking receivers. And they're not like stupidly expensive like Zenith. So yeah, when I came across this Philco 38116 at the Colorado Radio Collectors annual auction, oh man, I couldn't pass it up. For everyone who doesn't know what this is, Philco, like many other manufacturers, kind of made a lineup of radios. So going from very cheap radios to very expensive radios. A lot of the radios I work on are in the low-middle range, kind of working from AA5s, which is definitely on the cheaper range, to some better sets. 37630 was pretty much in the middle. The 37610 was probably a little bit lower. And then there's some other things, like for example, looking at another company, the GE thumb wheel dial set was very cheap. That would have been, someone even commented that would be part of like an electric plan. So very cheap set. Conversely, down here I'm going to just show some pictures of it. There's this 10-tube General Electric set that does tons of bands, has a giant speaker for a tabletop. It's huge. That would have been a pretty high-end set. But not the highest. GE made some impressive stuff. A lot of manufacturers had flagship models. Like, for example, Zenith, obviously their 1000Z Stratosphere, and even some of their 15-16 tube Stratospheres. And then you have Scott. Oh boy. Scott, they only made fancy stuff. But then you have like RCA with their, well obviously their WLW, but then they also had some very nice floor consoles. Spartan had their special mirrored radios. Capart had some really neat radios in their 500 series, just super elegant radios. In Philco, they had this. Well, technically not. The very best radio, arguably, that Philco ever made was the 38690, which was a step above this. So, yeah, this is the 38116. So let's quickly, kind of at a glance, some differences. Here's a picture of the 690. It is about the same size, but it's a extremely just dramatic cabinet. And technically, just going with technical stats here, they both have the same dial and same user controls, same 20-inch speaker, but this has the 20-inch concert, the 3 acoustic clarifiers, which are just passive radiators, and and a 15-tube chassis. The 690 has the 20-inch concert speaker, 2 high-range speakers, I think 4 passive radiators, and a 20-tube chassis. So a little bit higher on the range. Ultimately, when you start really getting into the tube count, I don't know, especially for a 20-tube set, a lot of tubes can do the place of 2. Like, I don't know if Philco pulled this, but there are some people who use like 2 half-wave rectifiers. And then push-pull output, which obviously isn't absolutely needed, but arguably it'll make the radio louder. You need a huge tube to replace the power output of a push-pull system. Now, how much would this radio retail for? Adjusted for inflation, looking at, I think, prices from PhilcoRadio.com, adjusted for inflation, this is about $5,500, so it would have been expensive, but today, I mean, you can build a very nice PC for around that price. But you also got to keep in mind that even putting inflation to one side back then, especially in the Great Depression, families didn't have a ton of money, and this would be more in like the $20,000 electronic range, just completely putting inflation aside, but how it would have like really seemed to the average family during the Great Depression, which they were coming out of when this was manufactured. So yeah, this would have been for the very wealthy. Obviously not like the closer to $10,000 asking price of the 690, but yeah, it's a nice set, and I got it and a spare chassis for $65. So let's take a look around back. Now, after I won this at the radio auction, I was like, wait, how the heck am I gonna get this home? This is a very, very heavy radio cabinet, and it was a fun process. The auctioneer had a furniture dolly, but it was a stretch loading into my mom's car. Almost broke the car because it weighs so much, but I can like muscle this thing around with my lack of muscles. Just about turn it around. And this is pretty good here. So, we're now gonna take a look inside. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Papa! Papa! Holy cow! That's bigger than I remember. Yep, this is a pretty crazy radio. So let's take a look at our chassis. It's pretty steeply mounted. This will be fun to pull out. But, yup, 15 tubes. Complete with, you know, rest, whatever that is. There's so much in here. There's a ton going on in this chassis, and people kept saying, oh, Jerry, you're going to have a fun time restoring that. But here's your badge. Pay attention to how much power this consumes. 165 watts. Whoa. Probably because you're push-pull audio out. What does this use? 6L6 push-pull before the 6V6 really came out. We have tons of filter caps. Oh, man. So, let's take a look at the speaker assembly, then we're going to talk about going forward. So, these 3 speakers below, basically decoration. One of them's intact, the other 2 are broken. And then we have this. This is the opposite. It looks way... Well, no, this is the same. It looks way smaller than it is. Here's it compared to my hand. This is our giant 20-inch speaker. I think it's 20 inches. Take a look at the field coil. This thing is huge. Like my hand next to it. This is a huge speaker. And we have our passive radiators, which is, in comparison, if this helps, these speakers are about the same size you'd see in a Philco tabletop set. So this is a huge speaker. Cone's intact. It's going to sound great. So, first thing you notice, this is not actually held into the chassis. I can like literally lift up the chassis as is. So it's actually being held in with these retaining blocks. These grommets are actually still in good shape. But yeah, that's the problem. With most chassis on this channel, I've just been able to flip it over and just kind of work on the chassis or flip it on the side. This is a huge chassis. This is not gonna be... I cannot just flip this to the side. So here's the goal. I'm going to fabricate a stand which holds onto these metal pegs and holds the chassis at an angle so that I can work on it. So that is our first step before we even pull this from the cabinet. So let's get started on that. I have built the chassis holders. Now we'll see if it works. Dang, I was able to let go of that right before it came slamming down the table. Refinished 1970, Larry H. Smith. So this was refinished in 1970, and it looks like it needs to be refinished again. So maybe that might indicate this has been recapped. So now we're going to test out our chassis holder here. It's not perfect. If you twist it, it'll probably snap, but it's attached. This more closely resembles an old television than an old radio. There's so much going on here. It's ridiculous. Now, first, paper cap count. This is what we always do when we open up a radio. I might miss a few. Disregarding bakelite blocks for a second. I see 18 right now. I bet there's more though in all the IF cans and stuff. I do have a parts chassis, so if something's bad, we're probably okay, but let's hope that doesn't happen. There's a ton going on here. Electrolytics is obviously going to be the first thing we replace, because line core looks okay. This eye, oh, there's two more down here, damn it. Can we even get to these? With enough, niceness, I could probably. I'm worried this is missing something here, but hopefully not. This has some things I'm familiar with in old Philcos, but some other things are crazy. Obviously, we got like 2 multi-section caps. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this will take a while to fix. We have all of our capacitors, so I'm going to get started on this. And I'll show you when we're done. Well, after a couple hours, we're done. We got a nice terminal strip with all of our beauty caps. And these over here. Maybe slightly less beauty, but it works, and it's mostly safe. One more thing before we actually plug this in, though, is the speaker wires. I need to quickly figure out which goes to which, and then we'll hook this up. Alright, so I took out all the tubes, tested them, put some deoxin in the sockets, and put them back in. None of them were bad. A lot of them were marginal, but none of them were bad. Should allow it to pass an IF signal, so maybe cleaning them will fix it or something else. Guys, huge news! I connected an antenna and it works faintly.